Empty cities hold the most haunting stories. This video uncovers 15 excavation sites where entire civilizations vanished without a trace. We will journey from ancient temples to lost desert kingdoms, piecing together the clues they left behind. By the end, you will understand the fragile threads that hold any society together. What causes a thriving culture to simply walk away from its grandest achievements? Why would a people deliberately bury their own sacred monuments? The answers reveal a profound truth about human history. What do you believe is the greatest threat to a civilization's survival? These silent stones speak to a fundamental human fear, the possibility that everything we build could one day be forgotten. When we walk through the ruins of a place like Machu Picchu or stare at the crumbling walls of a Mesopotamian city, we are not just looking at history. We are confronting a reflection of our own potential future. These sites are profound time capsules, capturing the final breath of a culture in the dust of its pottery and the alignment of its temples. The noted archaeologist Dr. Sarah Parcak suggests that these ancient disappearances force a difficult question upon us. Could our own complex, interconnected world face a similar fate? This is the core of the allure. It is the ultimate mystery, a puzzle where the suspects are not people but colossal forces like a shifting climate, the slow creep of environmental decay, or the sudden shock of conflict. What lessons do these empty plazas and overgrown roads hold about the fragility of our own societies? The search for answers begins not with a single clue, but with a city that simply gave up on itself, deliberately vanishing beneath the sands of time. A hilltop in Turkey holds pillars so ancient they rewrite our understanding of human history. Göbekli Tepe is not merely old, it is foundational, a temple complex constructed by hunter-gatherers over 11,000 years ago, long before farming or cities existed. The scale is staggering. Enormous limestone pillars, each weighing many tons, were carved with elaborate images of animals and abstract symbols, then arranged into great stone circles. This was a monumental undertaking for a society that supposedly lived a nomadic life. How did they achieve this without a permanent home base? Why did they invest such colossal effort here? The mystery only deepens with the site's fate. Around 8,000 years before the Common Era, the entire complex was not simply abandoned. It was meticulously and deliberately buried. Someone transported vast amounts of earth and rubble to fill every corridor and cover every pillar, creating an artificial hill that hid the sanctuary for millennia. This was not an act of violence or haste, but one of profound intention. Was it a sacred entombment, a ritual closing of a holy space whose purpose had been fulfilled? Did a shift in beliefs render the old gods obsolete, demanding their home be returned to the earth? The builders left no written clues, vanishing into prehistory as completely as the world they knew. They walked away from one of humanity's first and greatest architectural achievements, leaving behind a silent, buried cathedral whose original purpose we can only guess at. This deliberate vanishing act forces us to reconsider the power of belief in shaping our earliest societies. The silent, deliberate burial of Göbekli Tepe stands in stark contrast to another kind of vanishing, one that unfolded not in a single ritual act but over generations. In the vast Indus Valley, a civilization flourished with a sophistication that still feels modern. Its great city, Mohenjo-Daro, was a marvel of early urban planning, laid out in a precise grid of streets with the world's first known complex sanitation systems. Homes were built with standardized, uniform bricks, and a great bath at the city's heart suggests a society deeply concerned with communal life and cleanliness. For centuries, it was a peak of organized living, a testament to human collaboration. Yet, when archaeologists excavated its highest, most recent layers, they found no evidence of war, no signs of invasion, and no mass burials suggesting a sudden catastrophe. The city was simply fading. Its people appear to have gradually departed, leaving their well-ordered streets to the dust. The most compelling theories point not to a human enemy, but to an environmental one. A prolonged and devastating drought may have gripped the region, a climate shift that slowly strangled the agriculture that supported the population. Another possibility is that the life-giving Indus River, the very artery of the civilization, changed its course, leaving the cities high and dry. What makes this disappearance so uniquely puzzling is the society itself. There are no grand palaces for a mighty king, no colossal temples dedicated to a dominant god. This suggests a form of social organization unlike any of its contemporaries, perhaps governed by merchants or elders. Its quiet, orderly existence was mirrored by its quiet, orderly end. Why would such an advanced and resilient culture not leave a clearer reason for its demise? The answer may be that their greatest strength, their intricate adaptation to their environment, became their ultimate vulnerability when that environment itself transformed. The silent, empty streets of Mohenjo-Daro present a haunting picture of a civilization that simply faded away, a stark and peaceful contrast to the chaotic collapses we will soon encounter. High on the sun-baked cliffs of the American Southwest, entire villages seem to hang suspended in time. The ancestral pueblones of Mesa Verde did not just build on the land, they became a part of it, carving multi-story dwellings like Cliff Palace directly into the sheltered alcoves of canyon walls. For generations, these stone cities thrived, a testament to human ingenuity in a challenging environment. Then, around the year 1300, they walked away for good. The silence they left behind is filled with the artifacts of daily life, pottery left on floors, grinding stones set aside, and stores of food untouched. This was not a panicked flight, but a deliberate, organized exodus. The question that haunts these empty rooms is not just why they left, but why they never came back. Scientists studying tree rings have uncovered a grim clue, a decades-long megadrought that would have crippled their ability to grow corn, beans, and squash on the mesa tops above. Yet climate alone may not tell the whole story. As resources grew scarce, signs of social friction appear, with some structures being burned, possibly indicating conflict within the community. It was a convergence of crises, a slow tightening of environmental and social pressures that ultimately made this dramatic landscape unlivable. Their departure was not an end, but a migration. The people of these cliff dwellings moved south, joining existing communities and eventually becoming the Pueblo peoples of today. This profound connection turns a story of abandonment into one of resilience and cultural continuity. They made a conscious choice to leave their magnificent homes in search of a future, a theme of dispersal we will see echo across continents and centuries. The vibrant world of the Minoans was a marvel of the ancient Aegean. Their great palace at Knossos was not a fortress but a sprawling, colorful complex, its walls adorned with frescoes of leaping dolphins and graceful athletes vaulting over the horns of a bull. This was Europe's first advanced civilization, a society of artists, traders, and master sailors who thrived for centuries. Then, around the year 1450 before the Common Era, their brilliant world went dark. The collapse was so complete it feels like a curtain suddenly dropping on the first act of European history. What force could have been powerful enough to shatter such a sophisticated culture? The leading suspect lies 70 miles north, on the island we now call Santorini. The volcano Thera did not simply erupt, it detonated in one of the most colossal geological events in human history. The explosion would have been heard across the Mediterranean. It would have generated tsunamis, towering waves crashing into the northern coast of Crete, devastating its vital ports and fleet. Then a rain of volcanic ash would have fallen, smothering farmlands and crippling the agriculture that fed the Minoan people. In the aftermath of such a disaster, the intricate trade networks that were the lifeblood of their economy would have collapsed. But was nature the only architect of their demise? In the archaeological record, a second clue emerges. In the layers following the eruption, a new style of pottery and weaponry appears, belonging to the Mycenaeans from the Greek mainland. Did these warrior neighbors see a weakened, reeling civilization and seize their opportunity? The evidence suggests not a single invasion, but a gradual infiltration and eventual takeover of the ruined palaces. So what was the final fate of the Minoan people? The answer is lost in their own words. They left behind a script called Linear A, a written language that, despite decades of effort, remains undeciphered. Their true story, their accounts of the disaster, their prayers, and their final lament are locked within those cryptic symbols. Did they perish in the calamity? Did they assimilate into the culture of their Mycenaean conquerors, or did the survivors take to their ships, fleeing to start anew on distant shores, their identity dissolving into the wider Mediterranean world? The silence of Linear A means we may never know for certain, leaving the Minoans as a brilliant, beautiful, and ultimately ghostly presence at the very dawn of our story. Across the Mississippi River from a modern city, the silent earthworks of Cahokia tell a story of a lost American metropolis. This was not a small town, but a vast urban center, home to tens of thousands of people at its peak around the year 1100. Its skyline was dominated by enormous, hand-built earthen mounds, with the Great Monk's Mound rising 100 feet high, a colossal undertaking that required moving millions of baskets of soil. This was the heart of a powerful and complex society, a chiefdom that influenced a vast region. Yet within 2 centuries, this bustling city was completely deserted. The grand plazas fell silent, and the mounds were left to the elements. What could cause such a vibrant hub to simply empty out? Unlike sites destroyed by conquest, Cahokia shows no evidence of a violent end. Instead, the clues point to a slow unraveling. The very success of the city may have sown the seeds of its decline. Supporting such a large population required immense resources. Widespread deforestation for building and fuel would have altered the local environment. The overhunting of local game, like deer, would have reduced a critical food source. These pressures, combined with signs of social strife in the archaeological record, suggest a society straining under its own weight. Then, climate science offers a potential final blow. Research into ancient flood patterns indicates a period of increased and severe flooding of the Mississippi River around the 13th and 14th centuries. For a civilization dependent on riverbank agriculture, repeated inundations of their fields would have been catastrophic, leading to food shortages and hardship. Imagine the slow disillusionment as the river that gave life began to consistently take it away. The people likely dispersed in groups, joining or forming smaller communities elsewhere. The Cahokians left no written history, and their exact legacy among the later Mississippian peoples remains a subject of study. The empty mounds stand not as a monument to a single catastrophe, but to the fragile balance between a civilization and the environment it depends upon, a quiet warning etched into the North American landscape. The silent fate of Cahokia, shaped by its own relationship with the land, finds a dramatic echo on one of the most remote islands on Earth. Easter Island stands as a monument to both human genius and a profound mystery. Nearly 900 massive stone figures, the moai, stare inland from their ceremonial platforms, their backs to a vast and empty ocean. These statues are the work of the Rapa Nui people, a complex society that thrived in complete isolation for centuries. How did the builders of such colossal works of art and engineering vanish from their own homeland? The traditional story is a parable of ecological collapse. It suggests that to transport these multi-ton statues, the islanders cut down every last tree. Without forests to anchor the soil, the land eroded, leading to crop failures and a desperate scarcity of resources. This hardship, the theory goes, sparked internal conflict and a societal breakdown so severe that the population plummeted. Yet, this narrative is now being carefully re-examined. More recent archaeological findings indicate the Rapa Nui people were remarkably resilient and adaptive, practicing sophisticated farming techniques to survive in a challenging environment. The arrival of European explorers in the 18th century introduced a catastrophic new variable. Contact brought foreign diseases for which the islanders had no immunity, and later, brutal slave raids that carried away a significant portion of the population. So, what truly happened? The complete story likely lies in a tragic convergence. The island's environment was indeed fragile, and some resource depletion may have occurred. But the final, devastating blow probably came from the outside, a collision of worlds that a once great but isolated society could not withstand. The fate of the Rapa Nui is not simply a tale of a people who destroyed their own world, but a far more complex lesson about vulnerability and the unpredictable forces that can unravel a civilization. Their legacy is carved in stone, a silent testament to a culture that mastered its landscape, only to face challenges from beyond the horizon. The stark silence of Chaco Canyon holds a different kind of mystery. Here, in the high desert of the American Southwest, the ancestral Pueblones engineered a landscape of power and precision. They constructed massive great houses with hundreds of rooms, their walls perfectly aligned to the cycles of the sun and moon. For over 3 centuries, this was the ceremonial and economic heart of a vast region, a place where people gathered for trade, community, and connection to the cosmos. Then, around the 1200s, the great houses fell silent. The departure was not a single event, but a slow, deliberate unraveling. A primary suspect in this disappearance is a monumental drought, a dry period that gripped the region for more than 50 years. In an environment where rainfall was always a precious gift, this prolonged absence of water would have pushed an already fragile agricultural system to its absolute limit. Yet the climate crisis may have ignited a social one. Archaeologists have found evidence of conflict in this period, including structures that were burned and defensive positions established. It seems the environmental hardship may have fractured the social bonds that held the Chacoan world together, turning cooperation into competition for the dwindling resources. So what was the final straw? Was it a specific, failed growing season that broke their resolve? Or was it a collective decision that the spiritual center could no longer sustain the physical body? The people did not vanish. They migrated, carrying their knowledge and traditions to new homes, leading to a significant reorganization of Pueblo society. The true mystery of Chaco Canyon is not where its people went, but what final, critical failure of faith or resources convinced them to walk away from a place they had invested with so much meaning, leaving their grand celestial calendar to the empty desert sky. The grand stone faces of Angkor Wat have gazed serenely over the Cambodian jungle for centuries, a testament to the Khmer Empire's breathtaking ambition. This sprawling metropolis was once the heart of a vast and powerful kingdom, its population supported by an engineering marvel, a complex network of canals, reservoirs, and basins designed to control the region's fierce monsoons and store water for the dry season. For generations, this system was the lifeblood of the empire, enabling it to flourish. The traditional story pointed to a single, dramatic event, a 15th-century invasion by the Siamese, as the cause of its downfall. But modern technology has uncovered a far more complex and gradual tragedy. Using LIDAR, a laser scanning technique that can see through dense forest canopy, researchers have mapped the true extent of Angkor. They discovered a city larger than previously imagined, supported by that immense and intricate water management grid. The empire's greatest strength appears to have become its ultimate weakness. Evidence from tree rings suggests the region was struck by a series of intense, prolonged droughts in the 14th century, followed by a period of exceptionally powerful monsoon rains. This climatic 1-2 punch would have been catastrophic. The droughts would have strained the reservoirs, while the subsequent deluges would have overwhelmed the canals, triggering massive erosion and flooding that shattered the very infrastructure the city depended on. Can you envision the slow, inexorable collapse? The farmlands buried under silt, the canals choked with debris, the intricate balance of water and land completely upended. Faced with such a systemic failure, the empire's leadership made a strategic choice. They gradually shifted their political and economic center away from the faltering interior, establishing a new capital nearer to the coast and the vital maritime trade routes. The great city of Angkor was not sacked, it was simply left behind, its monumental temples and broken waterways slowly surrendering to the relentless embrace of the jungle. This was not a sudden conquest, but a calculated retreat from an environment that could no longer support its grand design. A profound lesson in the vulnerability of even the most advanced civilizations to the unpredictable forces of nature. The desert city of Petra stands as a monument to human ingenuity in the face of absolute scarcity. The Nabatean Arabs did not just build a city, they engineered an oasis, carving breathtaking temples and tombs directly into rose-red cliffs while mastering the art of capturing every drop of precious rainwater. For centuries, their capital was a vital hub, a glittering cosmopolitan center where incense and spice routes converged. Its wealth was not in gold, but in water, controlled by an intricate system of dams, cisterns, and channels that turned an arid canyon into a powerful, thriving kingdom. This mastery over a harsh environment makes its eventual silence all the more perplexing. The first shift was political. After the Roman Empire annexed the Nabatean kingdom in the year 106, Petra's unique role as an independent trade power began to slowly erode. Then, in the year 363, a massive earthquake struck. This was not merely a tremor, but a catastrophic event that shattered buildings and, most critically, crippled the complex water management system that was the city's lifeblood. Imagine the profound loss of confidence for the people who remained. The very engineering that defined their civilization lay in ruins, yet the final, quiet death of Petra was economic. Global trade was changing, with merchants increasingly favoring sea routes over long, arduous desert journeys. The caravans that had once made Petra rich simply stopped coming. Its reason for existence faded away. Why did this resourceful society not rebuild? The answer lies in that convergence of crises. There was no single enemy to fight, only a slow tide of misfortune, a collapsed infrastructure, and a vanished economy. The inhabitants did not flee in a single day, but drifted away over generations, seeking opportunity elsewhere until the magnificent rose-red city was left as a silent, empty wonder, its secrets kept by the desert for over 1,000 years. The stone citadel of Great Zimbabwe rises from the savannah, a silent city built entirely without mortar. For over 4 centuries, this was the heart of a wealthy African kingdom, a center of commerce whose influence stretched across the Indian Ocean. Its rulers commanded the flow of gold from inland mines to coastal ports, creating a network of trade that connected the continent to the wider world. The very architecture speaks of power and permanence, with massive, curving walls constructed from precisely fitted granite blocks, a technique that has withstood the elements for nearly 1,000 years. How could such a stable and prosperous civilization simply walk away from its magnificent capital? The answer appears to be a slow unraveling, a story written not in invasion, but in the exhausted land itself. The very source of its wealth may have led to its decline. Extensive cattle herding by a growing population could have led to overgrazing, stripping the soil of its vitality. The nearby gold mines, once so plentiful, were eventually depleted. The forests that provided timber for building and for smelting metal may have been cut down faster than they could regrow. This gradual environmental strain would have placed immense pressure on the city's ability to sustain itself. Was it simply no longer possible to live there? Other theories suggest a shift in trade routes away from the interior, diminishing the kingdom's economic power, or internal political struggles that fractured its unity. The people did not vanish. They likely dispersed, founding new, smaller centers of power elsewhere. For centuries, the true story of Great Zimbabwe was obscured by colonial narratives that refused to believe Africans could have built such a grand structure, its history rewritten to fit a false and prejudiced worldview. Only through dedicated archaeological work has the truth been reclaimed, revealing the legacy of a sophisticated and powerful civilization that, like so many others, ultimately found its relationship with the environment could not last forever. The fall of the Mycenaean Greeks was a collapse that echoed across the ancient world. These were the people of legend, the builders of monumental palaces like Mycenae with its famous Lion Gate, the warriors whose stories would one day inspire the epics of Homer. Their society was a network of powerful, fortified centers, connected by trade and a common culture, using the earliest known form of Greek, a script called Linear B, to manage their complex economies. Then, around the year 1200 before the Common Era, their entire world came crashing down in a remarkably short period. The great palaces at Mycenae, Pylos, and Turin were not simply abandoned, they were violently burned to the ground. The use of Linear B ceased completely, and Greece was plunged into a dark age that would last for centuries. Why would such a powerful and interconnected network of states fail so completely and all at once? Historians point to a perfect storm of calamities. Ancient records from Egypt and the Near East speak of mysterious invaders known only as the Sea Peoples, marauding groups who may have disrupted the vital maritime trade routes that were the lifeblood of Mycenaean power. At the same time, evidence suggests a period of severe drought and climate shift, leading to crop failures and widespread famine. This environmental stress could have sparked internal rebellions as desperate populations turned against their ruling classes. Some archaeological sites even show signs of major earthquake damage. It was not one enemy, but a cascade of failures, a systemic breakdown where each new crisis amplified the others. The intricate web of trade, administration, and military power that defined their civilization unraveled, leaving behind scorched palace gates and a silence so deep it would take generations for Greek culture to find its voice again. This was not the quiet fading of a single city, but the thunderous fall of an entire age, a stark reminder that even the most legendary societies are not immune to a convergence of catastrophes. The legend of a city swallowed whole by the desert persisted for over 1,000 years. Ubar, the fabled Atlantis of the sands, was a name whispered in ancient texts and Quranic stories, a place of immense wealth built on the priceless frankincense trade. Many believed it was only a moral fable, a cautionary tale of a people punished for their arrogance. Then, in the late 20th century, modern technology offered a startling clue. Satellite imagery revealed the faint, ghostly lines of ancient caravan routes converging on a single, remote spot in the Omani Desert. When archaeologists excavated the site, they uncovered the remains of a substantial fortress city, complete with towers and walls, precisely where the old maps and stories had always claimed Ubar would be. The discovery confirmed the city was real, but it also revealed its terrifying fate. Evidence suggests the entire settlement collapsed into a massive sinkhole. The theory is both simple and profound. The city's lifeblood was water, drawn from deep underground to sustain its population and the camels of the great frankincense caravans. In their relentless pursuit of this essential resource, they may have over-extracted the groundwater to a critical point. The limestone caverns that held up the city simply gave way, causing the ground to open up and consume their own creation. This was not an attack from an outside enemy, but a self-inflicted geological catastrophe. The city of Ubar did not just decline, it was physically erased, vanishing into the very sands that had given it life. Its story stands as one of history's most literal metaphors, a stark reminder that the pursuit of prosperity, when divorced from the stewardship of the environment, can lead to the most dramatic of downfalls. How much of the legendary details are true may never be known, but the silent crater in the desert speaks volumes about the fragile foundation upon which even the greatest wealth is built. High on the arid plains of the Bolivian Andes, the stone gateways of Tiwanaku stand as silent witnesses to a forgotten powerhouse. This was the spiritual and political heart of a vast empire that predated the Inca by centuries, a civilization that mastered its harsh environment with breathtaking ingenuity. Its architects fitted colossal stones together with such precision that not even a razor blade can slip between them, creating monuments that have withstood millennia of earthquakes. Yet around the year 1000, this influential state crumbled, and its capital city was left to the wind. The evidence points to a relentless, invisible enemy, a mega-drought that gripped the region for not just years but for centuries. This prolonged dry spell would have been catastrophic for the Tiwanaku's brilliant agricultural system, a network of raised fields and canals that created microclimates to protect crops from frost and maximize yields. As the rains failed year after year, this life-sustaining technology would have faltered. Can you envision the slow, grinding hardship as the water tables dropped and the fertile soils dried to dust? The social contract that held the empire together likely centered on a powerful priesthood that distributed food from these fields would have shattered. Without a system of writing, the Tiwanaku left no chronicles of their despair, no royal decrees explaining the crisis. The empire did not fall to an invader's sword, but simply fragmented, its people dispersing into smaller groups and migrating to more fertile valleys in search of survival. The precise political trigger for the final abandonment remains one of the great unanswered questions. Was it a single, failed harvest that broke the people's faith in their leaders? Or was it a gradual realization that the old ways could no longer sustain them? While the empire vanished, its cultural and architectural legacy did not. The knowledge of Tiwanaku's master builders and farmers echoed through the Andes, profoundly influencing the civilizations that rose in its wake, including the mighty Inca. Its story is a haunting lesson in resilience and the ultimate limits of even the most brilliant adaptation when the climate itself turns against you. Deep in the humid lowlands of what is now Mexico, the Olmecs laid the very foundations for every Mesoamerican civilization to follow. At their first great capital, San Lorenzo, they engineered a vast ceremonial plateau, moving millions of cubic feet of earth to shape their world. Their most iconic creations were the colossal stone heads, each one a portrait of a powerful ruler, carved from single blocks of basalt hauled from quarries dozens of miles away. These immense stoic faces, some standing over 9 feet tall, projected an aura of unchallenged authority for centuries. Then, around 900 years before the Common Era, that authority was shattered. San Lorenzo was not merely abandoned, it was systematically and violently taken apart. The colossal heads, those symbols of dynastic power, were deliberately mutilated, their features smashed, and then carefully buried in long, orderly lines. This was not the random destruction of invaders. It was a deliberate, ritualistic act of erasure performed by the people who understood the meaning of these monuments most deeply. Why would a civilization turn against its own sacred history? The evidence points to a profound social upheaval, perhaps a rebellion from within, a popular revolt against a ruling class whose power was literally set in stone. The people may have toppled the symbols of their leaders in a dramatic rejection of the established order. Alternatively, an outside force, a rival group, could have conquered the city and sought to annihilate the spiritual presence of the old rulers by defiling their images. Yet another possibility is that environmental pressures, like a shift in the course of crucial rivers, undermined the city's economy and led to a crisis of faith in its leadership. Whatever the cause, the Olmec heart did not stop beating. Their culture did not vanish. The center of power simply shifted to a new city, La Venta. The act of burying the San Lorenzo heads was not an end, but a transformation, a deliberate closing of one chapter as another began. This leaves us with a haunting question about the nature of legacy. What does it mean when a culture chooses to bury its own past, to hide the faces of its founders in the earth, as if to start the world anew? Yet even the most plausible theory demands a final piece of evidence, something tangible to close the case. That evidence has never been found. No European artifacts have been conclusively linked to the lost settlers within nearby native villages of that era. The silence is profound. Did the process of assimilation happen so completely that all distinct material traces simply faded away within a generation? Or did a different, more tragic fate befall some of the group? The word Croatoan was a planned signal, a prearranged clue meant to indicate their destination. The fact that it was carved and that the settlement was dismantled in an orderly fashion strongly suggests a planned relocation, not a panicked massacre. This logical explanation, however, does little to quell the human imagination. The story of Roanoke endures not because it is the most dramatic disappearance, but because it is so intimate. It is a mystery of families, of individuals whose names we know, who simply stepped off the page of history. Their vanishing act serves as a powerful postscript to our journey, a reminder that the line between a thriving community and an archaeological mystery can be drawn in a single generation. The question is not only what happened to them, but how easily a shared story can become a silent enigma. Across these 15 silent cities, a haunting rhythm begins to emerge. The specific details of each collapse are unique, yet they are bound together by common threads of vulnerability. The most persistent of these is environmental stress, a slow tightening of the natural world that supported them. From the mega-drought that emptied the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde to the failed monsoons that shattered the hydraulic heart of Angkor, a changing climate appears as a constant, formidable adversary. These were not primitive societies helpless before nature, but highly adapted civilizations whose intricate systems were perfectly calibrated for a world that then shifted beneath their feet. Their greatest strength became their greatest weakness. This environmental pressure often triggered a second, devastating pattern, the overexploitation of local resources. The legendary fate of Ubar, collapsing into the sinkhole created by its own thirst, finds a parallel in the theorized deforestation of Easter Island. When a society's survival depends on a finite resource, whether it is groundwater, ancient trees, or fertile soil, pushing that resource beyond its limit can lead to a point of no return. The land itself simply cannot sustain the grand design built upon it. This strain then ripples directly into the social fabric. As resources dwindle, the bonds of community can fray. The evidence of conflict at Chaco Canyon and the ritual destruction of the Olmec heads at San Lorenzo speak to this third pattern, where environmental hardship ignites political instability and social fragmentation. The complex hierarchy that once provided order can become a target for blame and rebellion when it can no longer guarantee security or sustenance. Add to this the unpredictable currents of global economics. A city like Petra, whose entire purpose was built on a specific trade route, found itself stranded when those commercial currents shifted toward the sea. Its magnificent water engineering became irrelevant when the Caravan stopped coming. Viewed together, these are not merely 15 separate tragedies. They form a sobering mosaic of interconnected risk. A civilization is not a fortress, but a delicate web of relationships between its people and their leaders, between their technology and their environment, and between their local economy and the wider world. When one thread of that web snaps, the entire structure can begin to unravel. These stories are not just about failure, they are profound lessons in resilience. They force us to ask what truly makes a society sustainable. Is it the height of its walls, the wealth of its kings, or the wisdom with which it manages its relationship with the world that gives it life? The silent stones of these vanished civilizations suggest that the answer lies in that fragile, essential balance. These silent stones remind us that the rise and fall of civilizations is a fundamental rhythm of human history. They teach us a profound humility, showing that technological achievement and cultural sophistication are no guarantee of permanence. Every society we have explored, from the hydraulic engineers of Angkor to the astronomical architects of Chaco Canyon, believed their world was built to last. Their very existence was a testament to human ingenuity, yet each one ultimately faced a moment where their grand designs were no longer enough. The mysteries they left behind are far more than academic puzzles waiting to be solved. They are open invitations for us to reflect on our own world, to question our own management of resources, and to honestly assess the resilience of our own interconnected societies. The historian Will Durant offered a sobering perspective when he noted that civilization exists by geological consent, subject to change without notice. This is not a metaphor, it is a literal truth echoed in the drought-stricken fields of the Indus Valley and the earthquake-shattered waterways of Petra. Our own modern world, for all its digital networks and global supply chains, is built upon the same fragile foundation of a stable climate and a generous environment. These vanished cities stand as quiet mentors, urging us to listen to their stories. Let their empty plazas and overgrown roads be a lasting reminder to learn from the past, not as a distant curiosity, but as a map of potential futures. If you found this journey through history's greatest disappearances fascinating, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the world's enduring mysteries. We would love to hear which of these silent sites intrigues you most, so please share your thoughts in the comments